Oh, hello. Hi, Dr. Val. How are you?
Good afternoon. I am fantastic. It is absolutely lovely to see you and to be here. Thank you so much for the wonderful invitation.
Oh, I'm so glad to connect with you again. Um, Folks who are going to be joining us, or as you're seeing the replay later, please say hello if you're whether you're watching live or the replay later, because we'll both of us will go back and watch. But if you're just coming across this and you don't know who we are, my name is Linda Downey, as you can see on the screen. And I'm a transformational health coach. I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. And I work with women specifically around the areas of stress, overcoming painful experiences from their past, and helping them to really gain a certain level of health and vitality and peace in their lives. And my journey really included a lot of work in that area, which is why I feel so strongly about it now. And I've asked Dr. Valerie Franc to come join us, and I'll let you say a little bit about who you are. But I really wanted a doctor's perspective on the topic that we're going to talk about today. And I've had the privilege of working with one of Dr. Val's patients kind of, alongside. And so I really know just the amazing work that you do, and your commitment to health is so powerful. So can you share a little bit about who you are and your background, and then we'll dive in?
Absolutely. I think what's really important is, when I started out my journey, I started out in a nutrition program, an undergraduate degree in nutrition at this fantastic university in Canada called the University of Guelph. And I was learning so much. And then I got sick. And it was through my own passion and wanting to explore more answers because I wasn't getting well and I wasn't getting the answers that I need that led me to naturopathic medicine. So I had gone to see my medical doctor. She was amazing, but she didn't have any answers for me. And she said, this is just stress. Go home, sleep some more, you're going to be fine. And I knew that even though she had a lot of knowledge and a lot of education and she was an expert in what she did, I knew something wasn't right. And my passion told me I can't live the way that I'm living. I'm not going to compromise. So, at the advice of my aunt, I went to see a naturopathic doctor. My naturopathic doctor said, "This is your diet, this is your food." And I, of course, did what every single human being in their 20s does and no, I know everything. Can't be my diet. I'm a nutritionist. I know everything, right? You think you do know everything at that age. And sure enough, it was my foods. And as soon as I did some deeper dives, some deeper testing, and learned a whole different lens about nutrition, health, and healing, my health turned around. And then I became on this quest, a quest for knowledge. That led me to the naturopathic college, which led me to study medicine all over the world, which led me now, I've been in practice for 25 years this year. So it's been a lot. And I've been able to work with a lot of really high performers all over the world, including elite athletes, including a lot of female entrepreneurs, a lot of people who are on the go and who are high performers and who don't want to compromise their health, but they know that they're not performing at their optimum, at their peak, and they're not sure why.
Yeah.
And so my journey has been about really delving into different forms of medicine. I've studied different forms of medicine all over the world just to find different answers to what is it that can maximize our performance? How do we reverse aging? How do we get our sexy back? How is it that there are people who are performing just as well in their 60s, 70s, 80s as they did in their
Mm.
20s and 30s? And that's how it should be. So, why aren't we being able to be like that? And I started to take a look at, different forms of medicine as well from the perspective of, hey, not just nutrition, but the mind body spirit connection. There's a lot of different health paradigms out there and a lot of different theories around health that don't separate the emotional aspect and the mental aspect from the physical. And here I find in the West, we really do. And we tend to look at the body like a car. So I wanted a full body answer, because when I was studying, nutrition, when I was studying a lot about animal biology, I actually started out in marine biology. And when I was studying ecology, I was like, no, the body's an ecosystem. Everything's
Mm.
interconnected. You can't separate things. So my whole journey has been about, how do I heal myself? What's the next area of passion and play? How do I get to that next level of passion and purpose? How do I, beat the aging process, right? Like, you're telling me I'm supposed to age, or you're telling me I'm supposed to be, sick. I don't want to. So how do I do it? Right? That's been my area of passion and play. And I've just been passing along that knowledge to people. So that's
Yeah.
a little bit about me.
Yeah, well, it's a lot. And I think similar to you, we both of us have used our own life experiences as the catalyst for what do I want to do in the world? So, what do I want to take from what I've learned about myself that worked and didn't work? And how do I want that to be of service with the people that I work with and make a difference in the world? So, I really relate to that and admire that about you. And what you touched on in the past, we've spoken, it's actually almost been a year, I think, that we spoke before about aging. And as you said, bringing your sexy back. So that's been a conversation we've had in the past about, how to maximize that and be a high performer throughout your life. Today, we wanted to talk about the relationship between what you think on a regular basis, what you feel on a regular basis, and how that shows up in your health. How does that manifest in your physical experience in your body, how well your body and your immune system can handle things? And as someone who, you said earlier, you got sick. I got sick in my 20s, and I was a person committed to wellness. My master's is in exercise physiology. I had been doing some triathlons, the short ones, not the long ones, but some full-length marathons. Was really into fitness, and I just kept getting sicker and sicker. And I was like, why is this happening? And when I would go to the doctor, I'm talking about in my 20s. So I'm 60 now. So almost 40 years ago, I got a prescription. Here's a prescription for your migraine headaches. Oh, here's a prescription for your thyroid. Here's a prescription for, I was on stuff for my gut. That was the first thing that showed up was ulcerative colitis in my very early 20s. So it was that journey, and it wasn't in the last piece of my own healing, and the last piece of what I learned was actually this connection, which is why I'd rather share it with people now up front, so you don't spend a couple of decades doing other things and missing this piece. So what's your take, Dr. Val, on that connection?
Well, here's the question that I want to be asking people, and what the question that they should be asking themselves. Like, what if everything that you thought you knew was right about health was wrong?
Hmm.
What if you didn't know what you didn't know?
Yes.
What if all of the experts that you were going to weren't giving you the answer because the answers that they gave you were deliberately an attempt to misguide you so that they could perpetuate their own myth? What if that was the case? Because that was our experience. Where do you go? And
Yeah.
so, when we go to a lot of practitioners here in North America, they seem to be experts and they seem to be very well trained. And in certain aspects, they really are. But 90% of the health information that's out there is wrong.
Yes.
So who do you trust? And in terms of going to a lot of healthcare practitioners out there, that's going to be the big key. Who do you trust? How are they trained? Because they could be very well intentioned, thinking that they know everything, and they don't. So when you know something is not right within yourself, you've got to really pay attention to that. And what's been happening, I find, is that a lot of us are being disconnected from our bodies. We're being taught to separate our emotions and our physical bodies. And we're being taught that somehow our physical bodies are broken and wrong.
Yeah.
And the weight loss industry is a perfect classic example of that, because that calorie in, calorie out model just for weight loss just doesn't work. And we've got decades of evidence. And rather than saying, hey, decades of evidence is showing us the weight of our population keeps going up, so we're not doing something right. Instead, people are trying to tell you, no, if you just eat less, exercise more, you're going to lose all the weight and you're going to be healthy. And that's not the case.
Right.
And we're seeing it time and time again. And then people think that, oh, there's something wrong with them because they're failing.
Right.
And then they internalize those emotions, and then they get frustrated, and then they think, well, why should I bother trying, because I'm doing everything right and I'm not getting the results, so I might as well eat the pizza, right? And it's this big spiral. And quite often we're just taught to disassociate from our bodies and not listen to those hunger cues, for example, or think that those aches and pains are supposed to be there if you're over 30, because apparently, old is over 30. What a joke that is, right? And I'm here to tell you, like, no, you should be just as energetic, vibrant, healthy, active, and fit in your 50s, 60s, 70s as you are in your 20s and 30s.
Yeah, 100% possible. And there's many, many, many examples of that. I think, speaking to what you said, most medical people out there earnestly want to make a difference. They care. They went into that profession because they do care. And they're giving you their best information.
Mm-hmm.
But their best information is also, you don't know what you don't know. Like, they don't know what they don't know because they're getting taught a particular curriculum. And for instance, and we're talking a little bit about nutrition, and we'll get back to the thoughts and feelings part of that. But I think, and I've heard this from doctors and people in the medical profession, there's maybe one semester of nutrition in all of medical school.
At
And
best.
at best, right? So food is the thing that you're putting into your body over and over and over all day long. Like, what else is going to have such a big impact? Well, the other thing is what you think and feel, because that's also in your body all
Yes.
day long, your thoughts and your feelings. But I do believe that, most of the people really do care and want to make a difference.
Yeah.
And, what you alluded to or spoke about before also is we are being separated. So we're losing the sense of, I have an authority about my body. I actually am the authority on my body if I'm taught that, but we're being taught the opposite. And so then we're losing that disconnection with self. And so many other cultures around the world, not in the West, really do see the human body. You said before, here we treat it like a car, but I know, like in Chinese culture, they see it as like a garden.
Mm-hmm.
And when the garden's not growing well, it's like, oh, do I need more sun? Is there something I can do with the soil? What's the water like? They don't just rip a plant out. They look at all of the things that are going into why that plant is either thriving or not thriving. So there's a science that exists that I don't think a lot of people are tuned into, and it's psychoneuroimmunology. And it's the science of the psychology, the thoughts that you're thinking, neuro, your nervous system, how your thoughts impact your nervous system, and then the link of both of those to your immunology, your immune system. And as someone who had 4 autoimmune diagnoses in my lifetime, I would have loved knowing that before I got 4. Like when I got the first one, which was ulcerative colitis, is an autoimmune condition, if you can look at it that way. But I had no idea. And it wasn't until well into my 40s where I started to learn this and then connected growing up in an alcoholic household. My mother died when I was 4. There was a lot of conflict in my household when my father remarried
Mhm.
for a variety of reasons. So by the time I was 20, in my early 20s, I had been thinking a lot about, I had a lot of thoughts that were angry. I had a lot of thoughts about what was wrong with me and my life, and holding that anger. And then that was feeding my immune system's dysregulation. It was feeding the dysregulation of my nervous system, which governs your immune system. So that's how I see it. How do you see it?
I would agree, and I would also stack on that. There's a lot of newer research as well, really, that they're leading into something called epigenetics, which they're now
Yeah.
saying, hey, those thoughts can actually affect your genes. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're susceptible genetically to a different health condition, like not just an autoimmune condition, but maybe cancer, or maybe diabetes, that you can turn on or off the switches that express different diseases, the genes for different diseases, just
Right.
by your thoughts. And of course, by the foods and the quality of foods. And there's some fascinating research that's out there as well, showing the profound effect of stress on the growing and developing brain, and particularly on the effect on the hormones of the brain and the hormones in the body. So what we're seeing is when children have a lot of stress when they're very, very young, it affects their brain development, it
Mm-hmm.
affects their stress response, and it affects their hormonal response. And so for women who have had very traumatic childhood, they're more likely to experience issues around hormonal imbalances, and they're more likely to experience very severe symptoms when they get to menopause because of
Mm.
how their brain has been rewired and shifted. So it's not that you're doomed to that, but we're starting to see the profound and powerful effect of emotions on the physical body, on genetics, on disease. And nutrition is vastly important, but sleep, a social connection, stress management, those are equally important. Pure water, those are equally important. And
Yeah.
we're really seeing now the impact of stress on health and different disease states. And we're saying, hey, this actually has more of a profound effect than we've given it credit for. So it's really worth your while to take care of your emotions, bring them into balance, into alignment, nurture them, to nurture your body, and treat yourself with care and compassion so that you can live not just a better quality of life, but a longer life. Again, with more vibrancy, with more health, being optimized, and give more back to your community, of course.
Right. And then also with that, you're passing on to the next generation. You're either passing on some really good traits and keeping those genetic switches turned off, down regulating the ones for disease, or not. And the word epigenetics, for those of you who maybe never heard of it before, really breaks down to above genetics. So it's this idea that we can really have a lot more that impacts our health than just the genes you were born with. Like this is all bigger than or above the genes or more important than. Because if you have a thought of like, well, yes, my parents and grandparents had this or that, so of course I got it. Not if you live differently. And the most important things, I mean, it's all toxicity and our chemicals, and like Dr. Val said, in the water and all those things. But in food and thoughts and feelings, again, to my mind, are the things that are most consistently in our body all the time. And go ahead.
And I was going to say, this is a really great topic to unpack because, genetics are a big topic, especially with a lot of companies out there now, offering different types of genetic testing. And there's a lot of people who are really interested from a health perspective. They want to know what's going on. Do I have this exposure? Breast cancer, the BRCA gene is a big one that everybody knows, but there's so many different things that we can test for. Alzheimer's, that's another one. And some people want to know and some people don't. But even you can test and see, again, blood sugar, diabetes risk, your weight. And so I have people who have their genetic testing done, and they'll say to me, listen, my genetic testing says that, genetically I am going to be overweight, or genetically I'm at risk for this disease or that disease. So that means I'm going to get it, right? And I'm like, no, the genetics that you have, whether it's expressed or not, the genetics is about 15% of whether you actually have the health condition or not.
Right.
The other 75, 85%, they're like the majority of it, truthfully, is going to be the foods that you eat, the quality of life that you live, the quality of your thoughts, the exercise that you do, the sleep that you get, the socialization that you have. Those are bigger factors. Those will control more of the outcome of your health than your genes. So
Yeah.
genetics really plays a very small part. But when you talk to most people, they think, oh no, your health, bad genes, bad germs, bad luck. That's it. There's nothing else I can do about it.
Right. Right.
No, there's so much more that you can do, but you have to know what's going on, and you have to really have a deep dive to really find out, hey, how much of this is impacting me and on what level.
Yeah. When we speak about hormones, and that's, why I wanted Dr. Val to speak to you all, to this audience, before I go on to about the hormones, is because Dr. Val does that kind of deep dive. I know that because of our shared person that we've both worked with. You're not going to get a more thorough approach than what Dr. Val does. But I also want to give a particular perspective around hormones. I view hormones as messengers. Like, the job of hormones is to go throughout the body, and to a large degree, and bring a message. So your thyroid hormones are delivering messages to the cells, to all the cells that they're going through, as an example. Your thoughts and your feelings become a physical thing through your endocrine system, because your thoughts, so if you're having a thought of I'm not safe, or you're holding shame, like earlier when Dr. Val said, you're doing all the things around your food and you're not losing weight because you're following that old calorie in, calorie out, and now you pile shame on top of it, like there's something wrong with me. So shame, as an example, is a feeling, and the thoughts that you might have might be, what's wrong with me? Look how ugly and fat I am. Why is it always me? Things never work out for me. Those would be the thoughts. Shame, anger, resignation would be the emotions. Those things are triggering the hormones. There's a particular hormonal cascade that is going to respond to those thoughts and feelings. And then those hormones go out and tell the body, turn this off, turn this on. This is what we need to do. The nervous system is governing that as well. But that becomes now a physical truth in your body with, let's say digestive issues. I always have stomach aches, or I always have headaches or back pain. And then that's going to lead to, over time, autoimmune or other things like cancer, especially if you have that genetic predisposition. That's kind of how I see that. Am I missing any? I'm trying to give to the lay person like a sense of really understanding that.
Yeah, I think that, there's so many different areas where people can go off balance and off alignment. And it's really easy for us as human beings to discard the emotions.
Mm.
And the emotions are so critical for us. And so, when we study, psychology, and we talk about, a hierarchy, and we say like, hey, there's a hierarchy of needs where you've got to have your base needs met. And then once the base needs are met, then you can do these other things and stack on top of them. But, if you don't have a house to live on and enough food, then these other needs aren't going to really matter so much. The emotions and the physical body, there's also a standard of hierarchical needs there too, where the emotions are much more important than the physical body. And so your emotional safety and security will always supersede your physical body. What do I mean by that? You have this unconscious mind that makes decisions. And it makes decisions based on what's going to protect you the most. Your unconscious mind always wants to protect you. It's its primary job. And so if there's going to be harm to either your physical body or your emotional body, your unconscious mind is going to protect your emotions first. And it's going to say, I would rather you eat the entire tub of ice cream and 10 pizzas and 20 Twinkies, ho-hos, whatever it is that you want to do, whatever your binge is, or an entire box of Oreo cookies, whatever that is, your unconscious mind would rather you eat that and harm the physical body and develop a disease than not be able to process the emotions. So when you haven't done the emotional work, and when you're not working with someone to help in terms of rebalancing the emotions, you're going to make choices that are going to be more damaging to your physical body as a coping mechanism and strategy. And you have to be gentle with yourself on that one. Now, I'm not saying continue doing that. It's okay to eat the cookies. What I am saying is like, hey, that whole box of cookies or that whole bucket of ice cream that you just ate down, that's your cue. That's your sign. That's your body's way of trying to get your attention to say, hey, there's an emotional need that needs to be met here that's not being met. So when we take a look at our emotions, we don't want to ever make our emotions bad, because they're not. They're just signals. And the hormones are signals too. And so when you're getting angry or sad or frustrated, it's telling you that either you've crossed your own boundary somewhere, or there is an unconscious thought or belief pattern that you made in the past that was protecting you that isn't serving you anymore. And so now it's time to bring that forward to examination so you can free yourself. So once you start to develop a lot of the emotional coping strategies, you won't be going to those foods anymore. So again, they're like little signaling messengers. And the hormones are the same way. They're little signaling messengers. And so when we get under a great deal of stress, our hormones can go off balance to shift us, to make us aware, like, hey, our body is telling us that this is not an environment that it feels safe in. And so what I tell people is that each and every person is going to have their different way in which their body speaks. So for example, when some people, they'll get sick and it'll go to their lungs first thing. For some people, when they're upset, it'll be a digestive issue. They'll get constipated or they'll get diarrhea. Some people will stress eat. Some people will stress not eat, like they'll just lose a whole bunch of weight. There are different indicators for people, and I call that their frog. So for me, I know that if I'm gaining weight around my midsection, if I have my little belly, that's my stress belly. That is my frog. That is the first place for me where I know I'm out of balance. I'm out of alignment, because that's where it shows up first. But once you start knowing where your frog is, and for those of you who haven't studied developmental biology, a frog is the most sensitive indicator of any ecosystem. So if you have a pond, if you have any ecosystem, if it gets poisoned, the frogs die off first. So that's why I'm saying this is your frog. So this is the first thing that okay, if I'm out of balance, this is going first. So when it goes off, you don't suppress it and say, oh, there's nothing wrong. You go, oh, wait a minute. Somewhere I'm out of balance. I'm out of alignment. I've got to take care of this, not because I need to be ashamed that I'm getting a cold or that I'm gaining weight or that I'm getting a digestive issue. It's that indicator that, hey, wait a minute, something in my system is off balance. Either physically, I'm not having the right foods for my body, I'm not getting the right rest for my body, I'm not doing the right exercise for my body, or emotionally, hey,
Yeah.
there's a behavior pattern or toxic people in my life or toxic thoughts or something that I'm doing, a situation that I'm putting myself in that is not serving me. And so if you can start to be compassionate and really be attuned to your emotional cues and those physical cues, you'll be able to pick up pretty quickly where the issues are before anything becomes a problem. And that's where disease prevention and anti-aging really occurs.
Yeah. I love that. I didn't know what you meant when you said the frog at first. So thank you for explaining it. And that's a great, easy way to like, oh, that's my frog, is like, that's my weak spot. That's my weak link. And, you know, when you were speaking that last part about, oh, what am I doing? What am I living that, you know, maybe there's a pattern that I'm agreeing to or staying in. In my training, we call that conscious conflict. When I keep putting up with something, I'm conscious, like, you know, if you're people pleasing or you keep saying yes at work or you're in a relationship and you know you're not getting what you want, but you keep saying yes because you decide, well, who else am I going to find anyway? Or, you know, all the good ones are taken, or, you know, I don't, this is as good as it gets for me, whatever it is. So you agree to stay where you're at, but your body and your soul knows it's not okay. So that's conscious conflict. And that's an example of some of what you talked about, which is when you're going to stay in that over and over, your health really can't come back. It can't turn around until you address that, because you're not giving it the environment that it needs to pursue vitality.
Yeah. Now, I don't know about you, but I also now believe in something called conscious unconflict, because I started listening to, I'm sure you're a fan of David Thunder.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. So for those of you who know David Thunder, you know that he recently, or fairly recently, took up boxing. So he is now hooked on boxing. I'm now hooked. He's got me hooked on all the boxing movies. I'm loving Rocky movies. I'm loving the Creed movies. I just can't get enough of boxing movies right now. And I love it because the mindset in those Rocky movies, like, oh my gosh, it is so profound. And so when David Thunder and I were talking once, he was saying, like, listen, one of the principles of boxing is that there's two rings. And one ring is the inner ring and one ring is the outer ring. And most people in their life stay in the outer ring. This is conscious unconflict. You're staying in the outer ring because, yeah, you think you're in the game and you look like you're in the game, but you can't get hit. You're out of that person's reach. Now they're out of your reach. You can't hit them, but they can't hit you. So it's a feeling of safety and security while you're kind of trying to pretend you're dancing around the ring. Oh, I'm really playing, but you're not. And in order to really play and in order to really box, if you want to hit your opponent, if you want to win in life, you got to step into that inner ring. And if you step into the inner ring, yeah, you can hit your opponent, but you're at risk of getting hit.
Right.
And so really, for me, it's like, okay, now you got to step into the ring. And so how many of us are just living our lives dancing around the outside?
Right.
Because we don't want to get hit.
Yep.
How many of us would rather be in the bleachers than be on the field? I would rather be on the field and fumble the ball than not be in the game. And
Yeah.
so all of those little symptoms that are coming up, those are just all your unconscious mind's way, your body's way, your heart's way, your soul's way of saying, get in the game. I got to get in the game.
Of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I resonate to that example because I am in my third year now as a basketball ref. I became a basketball ref a couple of years ago. And I don't know what it's like in Canada, but here, the crowd, the stands feel really free to abuse the refs. I
Oh yeah.
mean, seriously, I have never been yelled at. It's growing me. It's growing me because somebody said, "Why do you do it?" And I'm like, "Well, that's not why I became a ref. I became for activity and exercise, and I love basketball. But I'm the one on the court, and the people up in the stands have all this freedom to say all these things, but they're not on the court. They didn't
Yep.
go through the certification. They didn't take the exam. They're not down there feeling the pressure of like split-second calls." And I had a partner at a game not that long ago. This one guy in the stands was so fierce about it, just so rude. I mean, people feel so free to be rude. And that's sometimes what's happening when you're not really in life. You've got all this judgment and opinion, but you're not really doing anything about your own life, right? So back to your example, but this guy in the stands was so rude. And my partner on the court looked up and said, "You want to get a whistle and come down here?" And then he shut up. He got the point. So it's what you're saying is I'd rather make mistakes. I'm only in my third year. I miss plenty of calls, but I'd rather be down there on the court, moving my body, learning a new thing. I'm 60 years old and I just learned a new thing and how to do it. And now I'm like improving each year on that because I don't live under the concept that at 60, I'm supposed to sit home and watch TV. Right?
Yeah.
So I'd rather be doing that and making mistakes than be the person up in the stands yelling all the things, but they're not on the court.
Yep. Yeah.
To your point.
Absolutely. And here that does happen, not just in basketball, it happens in hockey. It's really bad in hockey. It's bad in baseball here. So,
Really?
yeah.
It's bad in all sports, but here too, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Some people, they just get very invested in
Yes.
in their teams and they forget, wait, those are humans on the court. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's okay. I mean, that's a side note. That's what I thought of when you were sharing that. But really, what you're, I think, making a point of is if you really want to be on the court of your life and creating health and vitality and optimization of how you feel in your physical body, how you engage in your relationships. To me, I'll add into that, how much do I open my heart and allow myself to connect from a heart centered place and to share and receive love? Because growing up in an alcoholic household, we did not do that.
Yeah.
And culturally, my background is German. German's very stoic, right? You laughed. Very stoic, like, stiff upper lip. We don't talk about stuff. It has taken, and that impacted my marriage, and I'm not married now. And I can see all the places where I'm responsible. If I were up in the stands, I would be noticing all the places that he's responsible. But
Yes.
on the court of my life, I took the time to learn where I'm responsible, that we're no longer married, right? Or whatever you want to apply it to. But that's what being on the court of your life is. And around health, if you're not paying attention to your daily diet of your thoughts and emotions, I believe you're doing yourself a huge disservice. And you're probably feeling really frustrated about your lack of improvement or your need to keep going with prescriptions and the next issue and the next issue. You're either resigned to living like that and or frustrated that you can't get better.
Yeah. And, for me, I've always been a spark and go woman. I feel this spark of passion. I'm like, oh, I want to learn about that, or I want to know about that, or that would be a fun adventure. So I'm always off to the next thing. And that's carried me through for a lot of what I've been able to do. But along with that, now I've also incorporated being a yes and woman. And I don't want to compromise in life. And you shouldn't have to. So if you know for your own health that there's just something missing, there's just something not right, find the answers. And if
Yeah.
you are talking to different experts, talk to a few and say, you'll be able to kind of tease out, like, I don't know if I think this is right, or, hey, wait a minute, if you're telling me these are my only options, Like, oh, this is all you've got and then you're done. No, there's so much more that's out there and available. And just go and find the people who have the answers that you need, and never compromise, and never think that because you are a certain age that you have to be tired or fatigued, or that it's over for you, or you can't live that life that is calling to you. Because I think for the most part, for every human being that I know, there's something singing in their heart. There's some
Yeah.
heart desire that they want, and that's pulling them forward. And they get taught that they have to stop listening to that.
Mm,
And
yeah.
that's the real shame.
Yeah.
So follow
Agreed.
that.
100%. 100%. So, Dr. Val, if people wanted to work with you, because as I've said, I have worked with somebody who's works with you, and I know the wonderful work that you do, and it is possible to work with you virtually, right? You don't have to
Yes.
be, right? So can you tell me, and I can put it here in the comments and make sure if anybody asks later, how can they work with you?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that they can do is they can go to my website and book a fireside chat. And I would think that would probably be the best way for us to connect first, because that way we can sit down and just talk. There's no obligation. And they can just say, hey, here's what I'm going through. What are your thoughts? Who should I be connecting with? Is this a good fit? You can ask me questions. We can chat about it. For people who just want to start a little bit of a journey and dip their toe in, I was recently actually in Texas. Talk about a warm, warm community. Um, I was with a very, very lovely woman by the name of Teresa Poor. She is a very dear friend, and she created this beautiful platform, Unbreakable for women and Unbreakable for men. And she's got this amazing conference. So she invited me to speak at her women's conference. And then we launched just a little bit of our Unbreakable Health. And so now we're just doing just very introductory talks about health, about fitness, about nutrition, so people can just connect to we're calling it the 111 days to Unbreakable Health. And we've just started that to just kind of say, hey, let's talk about health for 111 days and have a community that supports each other and growing. So they can reach out to me there as well and just dip their toe in the water and see what that's about. All of those would be wonderful ways of working together. So there's different things that people can do depending on how they want to jump in.
That sounds really great. What exactly is your website? Is it Dr. Valerie Franc?
It is www. dot dr
www.drv, yep.
Val, Dr. Val, Franc.com.
Dr. Val, Franc, right? Frank?
That's right. That's
Dot
right.
com. Let me
And yeah,
share that.
just go on there, book a fireside chat. And you can leave a little message in there saying, hey, saw you on Linda Downey's talk. And I know it probably is booked up for a bit, but I'll make sure to look for who's coming in and call you and get you in sooner.
Yeah. And to that point, if you're hearing this now, or if you watch the replay later, maybe put in the comments, I want to meet with Dr. Franc. And then if you see that yourself, Dr. Val, or I'll let you know, hey, so-and-so, so that you can kind of be looking for that. That could be helpful if you are that booked up, and I'm not surprised that you are. So, yeah. So I just thank you so much for your time and sharing your perspective, coming from a doctor and somebody who works with people. Our shared person has cancer, and I know that you've worked with other common people that we know who are very high performers who have turned their health around. So I know you have a lot of experience in that, 25 years in practice. So I thank you for your expertise and your insight that I hope makes a difference for people.
Thank you. And I should also mention, I do have a podcast out there that I did with a comedian by the name of Dave Hemstad. It was called Dr. Val Saves Dave. So there's an entire season of episodes out there of Dr. Val Saves Dave. So you can always go on Spotify or Apple and listen to those podcasts. And it hasn't come out yet. We'll see if it happens, but there has been, I have shot a TV pilot with yes, so we'll see if that happens. But with my colleague Andy Muto, who is a wellness chef, he and I have worked together with a lot of elite athletes, so there may be a TV show in the works. So
Wow, that's very exciting. Very exciting. I'm going to keep my eye out for that. Okay, well, thanks again so much. And again, anybody, if you have any questions, please drop them. I will make sure Dr. Val sees them. Okay, awesome. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much.